taking note of the expiration of the one-week ultimatum given for the restoration of constitutional order in the Republic of Niger, decide as follows. A, reiterates its strong condemnation of the attempted coup d'etat and the continued illegal detention of President Mohamed Bazoum, his family, and members of his government. B, further condemns the condition in which President Bazoum is being detained and hold the CNSP fully and solely responsible for the safety, security, and physical integrity of President Bazoum, members of his family, and government. C, uphold all measures and principles agreed upon by the extraordinary summit held on Niger on 30th July 2023. Underscore the determination of the ECOWAS authority to keep all options on the table for the peaceful resolution of the crisis. Enforce all measures, in particular border closures and strict travel bans and assets freeze, on all persons or groups of individuals whose actions hinder all peaceful efforts aimed at ensuring the smooth and complete restoration of constitutional order. Warn member states who, by their action directly or indirectly, hinder the peaceful resolution of the crisis in Niger, about the consequences for their action before the community. Call on the African Union to endorse all the decisions taken by the ECOWAS authority on the situation in Niger. Further call on all partner countries and institutions, including the United Nations, to support ECOWAS in its effort to ensure a quick restoration of constitutional order in conformity with its normative instruments. Direct the President of the Commission to monitor the implementation of the sanctions. Direct the Committee of the Chief of Defense Staff to activate the ECOWAS standby force with all its elements immediately. Order the deployment of the ECOWAS standby force to restore constitutional order in the Republic of Niger. Underscore its continued commitment to the restoration of constitutional.
And there you have it, the latest resolution from ECOWAS. The regional bloc has now called for the immediate activation of standby forces while reiterating its strong condemnation of the coup in Niger, condemning the continued detainment of President Bazoum and his family. Omar Aliou Toure, president of the ECOWAS Commission, has also warned member states who by their action directly or indirectly hindered the peaceful resolution of the crisis in Niger. Thanks for joining us on the program. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. You can join the conversation right now on Twitter using the hashtag #First100Days. Remember to also put in your word as we're asking what your thought is on the Niger situation. Is dialogue or military action the solution in that part of the continent? Let's begin quickly in the nation's capital, Abuja, where the second extraordinary meeting of ECOWAS just ended. Quite a number of West African leaders made it to that meeting, including leaders from Nigeria, Guinea-Bissau, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and others. At the meeting, President Tinubu, who is ECOWAS chair, says the regional bloc will continue to explore dialogue and other available means to restore democracy in Niger before the meeting entered a closed-door session.
And the well-being of the people of Niger, it is crucial that we prioritize diplomatic negotiations and dialogue as the bedrock of our approach. We did. And we still look to engage the party involved, including the coup leaders, in honest discussion to convince them to relinquish power as suggested and reinstate President Bazoum. It is our duty to exhaust all avenues of engagement to ensure a swift return to constitutional governance in Niger.
State House correspondent Femi Akode monitored that particular meeting earlier in Abuja. He joins me now for more on the ECOWAS resolution. Femi, ECOWAS is saying all options are on the table, but in the same resolution, it's now deployed the ECOWAS standby forces to restore democracy in Niger. What do you make of this latest decision by ECOWAS? Despite measures put in place to restore democracy in Niger, the junta there has formed a new government, announcing 21 ministers. According to a decree read out on national television, Prime Minister Ali Mahaman will lead the 21-member government with generals from the new military governing council heading the defense and interior ministries. So the coup leaders have refused to stand down despite threat by ECOWAS that it could use force to restore democracy. Recall that after taking over power in Niger on 26th of July, the junta ignored the 6th August deadline from ECOWAS to reinstate ousted President Mohamed Bazoum. Femi, I was saying earlier that even though ECOWAS says all options are on the table, it's also deployed the ECOWAS standby forces to restore democracy in Niger. What do you make of these resolutions?
Well, Nifemi, I would say that ECOWAS is ready to walk the hard way if it is the only way to restoring constitutional order in the Niger Republic. Because as it seems right now, the sanctions imposed by ECOWAS has not yielded so much. And it appears as if the military coup leaders in Niger Republic are still defiant. They are not willing to budge. ECOWAS is still ensuring that these sanctions remain in effect. The implementation of this sanction is absolute and 100%. What is new right now from this resolution is the activation of the ECOWAS standby force that will be deployed to Niger Republic. We don't have details about how this standby force will be deployed, when they will be deployed, how they will be deployed. That is left for the Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff of ECOWAS to determine. We believe because these are security issues, ECOWAS would want to keep some of these details up their sleeves. But one thing is certain, ECOWAS right now will take action against the military coup leaders in Niger Republic. Nifemi.
Interesting development, Femi. The ECOWAS Commission President also directed the President of the Commission, to monitor the implementation of earlier sanctions. Talk to us about the involvement of the African Union here, because it would seem that the regional bloc is asking for AU to comply as well.
Yes, the African Union was represented at this emergency meeting to discuss the socio-political situation in the Republic of Niger. Likewise, the United Nations, the European Union, and other regional blocs. What they want is the support and cooperation of these bodies, because they are quite important in ensuring the success of the full implementation of these sanctions that is intended to pile pressure on the coup plotters in Niger Republic. Well, ECOWAS is just a regional body within the African Union. They will still lead the African Union to also give them a full backing. African Union will also have to mandate its member countries doing business, having diplomatic ties and trade ties with Niger Republic to cut off all of these ties, and this would further help to strangulate the military coup leaders there in Niger Republic, strangulate their grip to power, and ensure that they cede power and restore constitutional order in Niger Republic. So the backing and support of the African Union is very critical and important to the success of the efforts being made by ECOWAS. Nifemi.
State House correspondent Femi Akande live for us in Abuja. Thank you for the update there. President Tinubu is also not giving up on a more peaceful approach to this. Earlier on, he approved the request by a delegation of leaders of major Islamic groups in Nigeria to allow them dialogue with their colleagues in Niger Republic on how to restore peace and democratic government in the country. The clerics who are opposed to war with the Nigerian military as threatened by ECOWAS argued that apart from the dire consequences of armed conflict, they are enjoined by their faith to seek mediation first in cases like this.
Deplored, coup d'etat in the Sahel region, and as a Democrat himself, he said he will do everything to ensure that there is democracy, justice, freedom, and peace in the sub-region. We as ulama are also committed to peace and justice.
The ulama advise Mr. President that we want peace and reconciliation. Always, if there is anything happen between you and your neighbor, the Holy Quran commands you to reconcile.
Also, as part of peace moves, the 14th Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi, has briefed Chairman of ECOWAS, President Bola Tinubu, on his intervention efforts in resolving the Niger crisis. Recall that Muhammadu Sanusi visited the presidential villa earlier following his interaction with the coup leaders in Niger, saying he was warmly welcomed in the landlocked West African country.
Yes, I came to brief him on the details of my discussion with the leaders of Niger. Interventions are ongoing, and we'll continue to do our best to bring the two parties together to improve understanding. This is a time for public diplomacy. It's not a matter that we leave to governments. All Nigerians, all Nigerians need to be involved to find a solution that works for Africa, a solution that works for Niger, that works for Nigeria, and a solution that works for humanity.
I'm joined now by publisher Inside Watch Africa, Oluwaseyi Adeyemo. Thank you for joining us on the program this hour. I believe you're following the updates from what seems a hot stance on the part of the regional bloc. ECOWAS has now directed its Committee of Chief of Defense Staff to activate ECOWAS standby force with all its elements immediately. It goes ahead to order the deployment of ECOWAS standby force to restore constitutional order of the Republic of Niger. What do you make of this development? It seems your mic is mute, Mr. Adeyemo.
Oh, sorry. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, as a Nigerian, I would have preferred that this was, dealt with without us procuring the option of going in with the military. Obviously, that will cost Nigeria money. Obviously, that is likely to cost Nigeria some soldiers, which we dearly need because we also are prosecuting, protecting Nigeria from the hands of the Boko Haram and other dangers that we're faced.
Well, we're working on that connection to be able to get more from Mr. Adeyemo. I think it's back now. Please go ahead. Okay, so we asked the question, what your thought is. Just hold on, Mr. Adeyemo, while we work on the connection with you. We seem to have troubles hearing you. But we asked the question online, particularly on Twitter, as to what Nigerians feel about which way forward as regards the intervention in Niger Republic, whether ECOWAS should go all out with force, particularly the military intervention that it's talking about, or still follow through with diplomatic action. And there are quite a number of interesting submissions on X. I understand it's X now and not Twitter, as regards what Nigerians feel about this. Let's take a few of them. What's your thought on ECOWAS' decision? Here's what our viewers are talking about. Let's begin with this one. who says, just a minute while we fetch that. All right. This one, this is from Shogo Omosho. He says a consultation and consolidation approach should be employed before any form of confrontation. I strongly believe through some strategic and effective engagement, the military can hand over power. However, every measure must be applied, but war is not the solution. MS Mohammed says, I believe through dialogue, there should be a resolution at the end of discussion. However, if it fails, military intervention, then it's a good option too. For Madoti, military intervention is never an option. If they're ready to dialogue, that will be the very best. But if they insist on the coup, then I think the military intervention will be the best. We can't allow democracy to be buried in Niger. Midday says Niger is like every family last born. After doing the wrong thing, they start crying to any little correction. ECOWAS, according to him, is the one correcting Niger. Those other African countries supporting self-aspirants. Is coup a good thing for our democracy? It returns the question to us. Norin at I am Shaki Zaki simply says, dialogue, please. And then Isa Ojibara says, military intervention is not an option. We should not be another Western puppet. Again, most of the northern states have affinity with Niger. A war in that country could be termed a war with the North. Dialogue, it says, is the best. Let's get back to Mr. Adeyemo. So we've seen envoys from Nigeria, from the AU, ECOWAS, US, and even, I think, the UN that couldn't meet the coup leader in their attempt to negotiate. But yesterday we saw former Emir of Kano, Lamido Sanusi, welcomed warmly by the junta leader himself. What does this mean for diplomatic efforts in that region?
That we need to continue to try as much as we can. You see, truth between you and I, Nifemi, I've said this several times that ECOWAS need to buckle up and take his position as the police for the region. But as much as possible, anywhere in the world, diplomacy is always the first option. And that's why America, as strong, as big as they are, up till now, they've not outrightly said that this is a coup. Because then they are looking at cost, they're looking at all options. That is usually the best way to go about things like this. Like I said, yes, ECOWAS must take its place as the police and make sure that we have peace. We can afford, because if this goes through, it means we now have 4 of the 8 francophone countries in ECOWAS, being led by a military junta. We can't have that. That is not something we can encourage. But again, as much as we can, we are open. I mean, I'm open. I'm one of those who believe that if we continue to stifle and continue to apply all the sanctions that we're applying, there's no way they will be able to withstand them, because it is clear that they're a very poor country and they need, we all know that majority of how they fund their country is from aids from America, from all over the place. Nigeria provides 70% of their electricity and all of that. And if all of this is being taken away, whatever support they have now is naturally going to collapse going forward. So I'm still hoping and believing that at the end of the day, all of this would be able to achieve that result, and the standby military option that we have taken right now would not be fully activated at the end of the day before we're able to restore, all of this back to normalcy.
So some leaders of major Islamic groups in Nigeria also met with the president yesterday, asking to join the negotiation. Some have wondered how effective interventions of this kind are or will be in matters, in cases like this. But then, as we speak, the junta is busy forming a new government back in Niger. It has appointed a prime minister who used to be a representative of the AFDP. They just recently inaugurated 21 new ministers. It seems the coup leader isn't bulging.
No, so again, it's not the fact that they're not bulging. It's the fact that they've gotten to a point right now where people describe as a point of no return. Are they going to go back and be arrested? Are they going to go back and be tried? So they would keep trying as a group. But we're talking about the people of Niger. The moment this bites harder, the people themselves are the ones who are going to turn against them. Because what the people are expecting is that in some way they are savior from a government that was unable to provide them security, from a government that was unable to provide them good, economy. So in their mind, these ones, like we've always had in the whole of Africa, these guys in the uniform will come, and all of us would rejoice because we feel that they are likely to provide us with better governance. But history has shown that they never do. So this is happening again, and because they are human beings and have taken these steps, it is only natural that they will do everything within their power to sort of give the impression that they would not take a back step. They are going to go on and do this all the way. But it is obvious that they don't have the strength to do this, because in the same vein, they're having to deal with Al-Qaeda, all of the threats that is coming from everywhere. The same military and the rest of them, Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, they also have that problem, incursion from all over the place. So whatever army they have been divided into two. Even ours have been divided into two as well, because right now there's some people who are on 24 hours, surveillance and fighting against, Boko Haram and the rest of it as well.
So we do not know for sure if the junta in Niger has an overwhelming support, but we've seen a substantial support from citizens in that country. What happens back in Nigeria? Because, the president keeps saying this is an ECOWAS decision and not a President Tinubu's decision. But Nigerians also have a mind of their own. There are 6 states in Nigeria already affected, the economic burden of shutting down the borders. There's what Nigerians think the president should do otherwise. How do you think all of this local interest will play out?
Again, I mean, those local interests are legitimate interests. Truth is, like, we are brothers and sisters to Republic of Benin and all the countries we're bothered with. We have very strong ties with them. So naturally, some people are going to be directly affected. Their uncle, their aunt, their wives, their family, in-laws, and all of that. This is going to affect them. Business for those who do business along the border area. And a lot of very, long historical tide is going to be broken because of this. And so that naturally will affect, and people would, but yes, you will always have a leader. The leader must provide leadership and must be able to convince the people that the decisions they're taking are the best for everyone. Okay. And at the end of the day, all of this is to make sure that whatever decision is taken is the best decision for everyone, Nigerians, and the whole of Africa.
Publisher Inside Watch Africa, Oluwase Adeyemo, thank you for your thoughts on the program this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's take a few more from the comments of our viewers on Twitter. Isa Ojibara says military intervention isn't an option. We should not be another Western puppet. For Moshood Okunla, dialogue first. And if it fails, military action should follow. Democracy shouldn't be truncated anywhere in Africa. Osita Chibuke says military government is a form of government. It's even better than so-called democracy for some people. Nigeria did better in almost all economic indicators during military governments than what he calls the so-called democracy. Niger people should be allowed to choose between democracy and military. Unfortunately, there was no referendum to tell whether the Niger people wanted the military intrusion or not. Keshinro Olatunji says, I believe ECOWAS honor the leadership of President Tinubu as chair, should continue to dialogue with the Niger coup leaders to find a lasting truce. Hopefully, this will be a wake-up call for the rest of ECOWAS member countries on the importance of good governance. And then finally, Fowoba says the best way to resolve the coup situation in Niger is to engage in a peaceful dialogue between the coup leaders, government, the opposition, civil society, and other stakeholders with the mediation of ECOWAS and the AU. The dialogue should aim to establish a clear roadmap. It goes on to say a clear roadmap for a swift and credible transition to civilian rule with guarantees for the safety and rights of all parties involved. Well, that's our program today. Don't forget the conversation continues online. Remember to use the hashtag #first100days. You can watch a repeat broadcast of this program at midnight and at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Stay with us.